Tell us about your coming to know Jesus as your Savior.
You know, we moved to Texas from California, Alameda, right outside of San Francisco. And really, it was a pretty simple story. A guy named Jeff Faircloth, who played football with me, had a locker next to me, and just shared the gospel with me. I mean, he's a very aggressive guy, and he really did say, "Hey, I'm going to tell you about Jesus. When do you want to do it?" I mean, this is happening. When do you want to do it? Do you want to do it after practice? Do you want to meet me for breakfast? But this is happening. And so he began to just share the gospel with me and take me to church some. My mom was a PK and talked to us all the time about the Lord, but I wouldn't call our home a Christian home by any stretch of the imagination because of my dad's influence. But I became a believer through the testimony of a guy sharing the gospel with me, and just so grateful that his grandparents put him in that school and let him do the things he did, because in God's providence he ended up in the locker next to me. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So besides him, who were some influences in your life that were instrumental?
In my conversion?
Sure.
That's a guy named Jerry Hendricks, for sure, was the youth minister at the time, and really was the right kind of youth minister for me. And so for really, before my conversion and then for the year after, my life was go to school, go to practice, leave practice, and go sit in Jerry's office until he went home to be with his family. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes I'd even go home and have dinner with his family, or he taught me how to tie a tie. First cup of coffee I'd ever had in my life, he brewed. My dad drank the instant, like Folgers instant coffee, so I always thought coffee's the nastiest thing I've ever. And then he was like, "You've never had coffee, boy." Brewed me coffee, and loved the Lord. Was very disciplined. Talked to me a lot about. He's very leadership oriented. Very be a one percenter. Discipline, not desire, determines destiny. Those are just phrases that I can remember him teaching me. He was very influential in my life and conversion, and continued to be afterwards for quite a bit of time. And really it was mainly those two guys that were kind of the cornerstone of Christ drawing me to himself.
Well, how has Jerry's influence in your life helped to shape your leadership for young men?
Well, I think really the thing that I think he was an example of how you disciple, which is you're available and you're open and you're honest, and you're, when your shortcomings come out, you acknowledge them and apologize. Here he was at the time a 34, 35-year-old man, and I'm 17, 18, and a punk. I don't know how else to say it, but and so there were times, man, he'd rear up at me, and then he'd come back and apologize. For me, I guess for the world I was coming in, the home I was coming in, for a grown man to apologize and ask for forgiveness, I didn't have framework for that. Mm-hmm. I really didn't. I didn't know what to do with it. And so really just that openness, that lack of, that humility he walked in was a shaping force. And then, man, he was a disciplined man who wanted to be the very best he could be with what God had given him in a mind, what God had given him in emotions, what God had given him in his health. And so I think that rubbed off on me also. Just that desire to be everything I can be and to work hard to that end. Yeah. And that not be godless, but with eyes fixed on Jesus Christ, running our race with endurance. Mm-hmm. So it's not man-centered. It really isn't. But I want to be obedient, maximize all that God's given me and all that He's made me.